We seek to understand bilateral trade and economic relations between Zimbabwe and the different countries and organizations that we speak to. My name is Love Motrangira, and I'm honored to have the Japanese ambassador to Zimbabwe on the program today. Your Excellency, welcome.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Now, His Excellency's name, and this will amaze you, is Satoshi Tanaka. Sounds very much like Shona. And so exciting. Ambassador, looking at the history of your country,
Yes.
you have gone through so much challenges as a nation, and you have managed to rise above all those challenges. And as we speak, Japan is the second largest economy in the world. What would you attribute this rise to?
That the Second World War had devastating impacts for Japan.
True.
With Tokyo, Osaka, and the many other cities mostly destroyed,
That's true.
and including Hiroshima and Nagasaki by atomic bombs.
True.
In fact, the human loss was 1.85 million deaths out of total
1.85 million.
85.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
Out of a total population those days of 74 million. The GDP was halved, and industrial production dropped to 1/10
1/10.
pre-war levels. As you said, after the war, the devastated Japanese economy rose quickly from the ashes, and we are now a very different countries. I think there are many factors contributing to this economic growth, and I will highlight just a few main ones.
Sure, would like to hear that.
Thank you. And one of the major factor is technology development.
Technology.
Yes, and Japan is a country with scarce natural resources, unlike Zimbabwe. So manufacturing was the only way to generate a trade surplus.
Okay.
Japan not only imported technologies, but also improved them and devised new leading-edge technologies.
Okay.
In addition, enormous amount of investment was made, poured into the development of social infrastructure and the construction of manufacturing and other facilities through various kinds of financial schemes. Then I would add another major factor contributing to our economic growth is the well-educated industrious workforce. Through this rapidly evolving process, Japanese economy went through massive structural adjustment or structural transformation. And many young people moved to urban areas where they were engaged in the newly developed economic activities. As a result, Japan achieved its rapid economic growth as well as democratization and a free and open socio-economy.
I know that Zimbabwe is rated as one of the highly literate countries in Africa, maybe in the world as well. I would like to understand what sort of skills were you developing in your people in order to meet the demand arising out of the manufacturing and other economic sectors. I'm asking this because I want to see what it is that maybe Zimbabwe as a nation can also learn from your experience. What sort of skills did you develop for your people?
Education is very, very important, and a really
True.
skillful workforce is very important for any sector in the economy. But that's a specific area of skill. It totally depends on the sector by sector. So manufacturing sector or commercial sector, agriculture sector, the individual sector, each sector has its own very important technologies and skills, experiences.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to say specifically which technology or which what kind of people are very important for each sector. But generally speaking, the basic education and also the more specified, technique or technology is very, very important.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So you're saying the skills have to be specific to each economic sector. Very valid. Thank you so much for that. Now, moving on to the other sectors that are driving the Japanese economy. I know you've already mentioned manufacturing. Are there any other sectors that are driving the rapid growth that we have seen in your economy?
Japan's GDP is the third, actually, in the world right now, and came to about $5 trillion in 2020.
Sure.
A total of 73% of this GDP comes from the so-called tertiary sector.
Tertiary sector.
Yes, and which includes retail trade, real estate, scientific and technical services, and health and sanitation services.
Okay.
The manufacturing sector and other industry, as you said, which have driven Japan's economy since the Second World War, especially during that really rapid economic growth time, and account for about 26% of the GDP. Agriculture, forestry, and fisheries account for only a total of 1% of the GDP now.
What is that?
On the other hand, we are currently facing multiple challenges, including, this new COVID-19 infections, climate change causing more frequent and severe natural disasters, soaring prices of imported resources, and declining and aging population.
Okay.
To tackle these challenges and boost economic growth, Japan had started an initiative called Investment in People. It includes investment in science, technology, and innovation, investment in startup companies, green transformation and digital transformation, and investment in disaster prevention and mitigation.
Now, let's look at your major exports and also imports.
In 2021, export from Japan came to around 759 billion US dollars.
759 billion.
US
That's
dollars.
huge.
Of which about 20% was general machinery, such as semiconductor manufacturing equipment.
Excellent.
20% was vehicles, including cars.
And we import a lot of those here.
Oh, thank you very much. And 18% was electrical equipment, such as integrated circuits, and 12% was chemical products, and 11% was metal products, including steel. On the other hand, imports to Japan came to about 773 billion US dollars.
753. Almost
73. Yes.
73.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of which about 20% was fuels, including oil and gas. Around 16% was electrical equipment, such as semiconductors, and about 12% was chemical products. In relation to Zimbabwe, by the way, as of 2020, Japan's export to Zimbabwe came to around...
I would like us to take a short break, Your Excellency.
Yeah.
And then when we return,
Yeah.
you can tell us more about the cooperation and the trade between Zimbabwe and Japan.
All right.
Stay tuned, viewers. We'll be back soon. Welcome back. Now, when we took the short break, the ambassador was explaining, or he had just started to explain, the economic relations between Japan and Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, please continue.
Yes, thank you very much. I was talking about Zimbabwe's, Japan, the trade relations.
That's true.
As of 2020, Japan's exports to Zimbabwe came to around 28 million US dollars.
28 million.
Mainly including vehicles, as you said, and pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals.
And Japan's imports from Zimbabwe totaled about 27 million US dollars,
Okay.
mainly comprising leaf tobacco,
Tobacco.
non-ferrous slag,
Okay.
ferroalloys, and raw minerals.
Okay.
Yeah, those are very important resources.
Let's look at other areas of cooperation. We know that your country is supporting agriculture, is also supporting, youths, empowerment programs. Would you like to give us an overview of some of those areas of cooperation?
Yes, currently we are providing assistance in the health, food security, transport infrastructure, agriculture, and the education sectors.
Okay.
I believe that one of the most important things for Zimbabwe right now is to build a more resilient health system.
More resilient health systems.
Yes.
Okay.
In this regard, Japan is assisting by providing medical and hospital equipment for instance, the Sally Mugabe Children's Hospital, as well as for 12 other public hospitals around the country. And JICA is training staff at the same hospitals to improve the hospital management and the quality of health service delivery through the 5S Kaizen TQM project.
Okay.
In terms of food security, Japan has been providing emergency responses to people affected by drought and the cyclones through the UN agencies. For example, for severely drought-affected communities, we have funded food assistance and the construction of community assets, such as nutrition gardens and dams through WFP.
Okay.
In terms of transport infrastructure, as regional trade is essential for Zimbabwe's economy,
True.
Japan is providing high quality and resilient infrastructure to improve the country's connectivity with neighboring countries.
That's important.
As I mentioned, in 2018, we funded a project to improve a section of North-South corridor between Makuti and Chilundu. This section of road was very dangerous.
It
with
is.
Sharp hairpin bends, steep gradients, and high accident rate. But if you have traveled down the improved road, which I drove last week, which was opened last year, actually, you will have seen a high quality of construction, allowing smooth and safe flow of traffic. And our two governments are now negotiating about improving a further section. Also, JICA experts are currently implementing a project at Chilundu one-stop border post to allow the faster passage of goods and people through the border. They are training JIMRA and customs officials on improving the efficiency of border procedures. In terms of agriculture, we funded Nyakomba irrigation scheme. It irrigates a total of 580 hectares.
That's huge.
Yes, and benefiting 760 farmers' households. It has allowed the farmers to diversify their crops and grow maize, beans, chili, tomatoes, and wheat throughout the year.
Nice.
And through the GymShep project, JICA is training small-scale farmers around the country on market-oriented agriculture and changing their mindset from grow and sell to grow to sell.
Wonderful.
In other countries where JICA has carried out a similar project, farmers have managed to double their incomes.
Oh, that's good.
Finally, another type of our cooperation is supporting small-scale community projects through NGOs. Some of our current and recent projects include landmine clearance in Lushinga area, building new classroom blocks for a secondary school in Chirumanzu,
Chiromanzo.
Yes.
Okay.
Setting up nutrition gardens with solar-powered boreholes for young women in Furungwe.
Orongwe.
Providing a chemistry analyzer for a hospital in Zaka.
Okay.
And constructing a training center for vulnerable youth in Bulawayo.
In Bulawayo. Wonderful, Your Excellency. A lot of projects that you are funding, that you are involved in, that you are supporting, really appreciated. And I enjoyed learning that your economy is really diversified. Now, we are going to take a short break. Viewers, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the final segment of the Diplomat Couch. Now, Your Excellency, we want to find out the relations now between Japan and Africa and the world at large. The 8th International Tokyo, or rather the 8th Tokyo International Conference on Africa's Development was held in Tunisia. What are the key issues that were discussed?
Thank you very much for your really timely question.
Thank you.
Japan has really good relations with African countries, and our development cooperation with African countries, including, of course, Zimbabwe,
Sure.
is guided by this conference, TICAD.
Okay.
The goal of TICAD is to mobilize the support for Africa's development. Japan is one of the co-organizers of TICAD, the others being the United Nations, the World Bank, and the AU. At TICAD 8, the three pillars adopted were realizing structural transformation for sustainable economic growth and development, and realizing a resilient and sustainable society, and ensuring peace and stability. And Japan committed to invest 30 billion US dollars over the next 3 years for
30 billion over the next 3 years.
That's right, for the sustainable growth in Africa. Increasing investment of Japanese companies in Africa and investment in startup companies was also the top of the agenda, as well as sustainable growth. The countries outlined their commitment to improving the lives of their people. In terms of health, they resolved to achieve universal health care, or UHC. Japan committed 1.08 billion US dollars to fight infectious diseases through the Global Fund.
So this is in addition to the 30 billion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in terms of food security, the country is determined to increase food production. Japan will provide 300 million US dollars to support this and strengthen the capacity of 200,000 people in the agricultural sector. Okay. These were just some of the commitments and an announcement made at TICAD 8 to ensure sustainable growth and greater human security on the continent.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Indeed, Africa needs support to, especially for the startup companies, seeing that our population obviously is youthful, and we need to support it with jobs and job creation opportunities. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to climate change. This is a real issue. We are all feeling the effects of climate change with more increased droughts, changing weather patterns and so forth. Are there any initiatives that Japan is putting in place to ensure that there is zero emissions, or what is known as net zero, by 2050?
Thank you for another very important question.
Thank you.
Yes, I think fighting climate change and protecting the environment are the most important challenges that we are facing this century. As you mentioned, Japan is resolved to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Japan's approach is based on maybe 3 key principles. First is promoting new technologies that mitigate climate change, such as solar and wind power, electric vehicle, and railway as an alternative to petrol or diesel vehicles, and energy efficient buildings as well. And Japan is sharing these technologies with African countries.
Oh, amazing.
And JICA has successfully implemented, for instance, reforestation projects in some countries.
Okay.
The second principle is promoting green finance. That is also important to support the development and dissemination of these technologies. And finally, supporting international cooperation for adopting green technologies. And at TICAD 8 meeting, Japan's Green Growth Initiative, we call it, with Africa, was launched. Its goal is for African countries to leapfrog old polluting technology and rather adopt the newer, cleaner technologies. It also aims to make countries more resilient to climate change, such as through sustainable agriculture practices. This will be achieved through investment of $4 billion from public and private funds, including through multilateral development banks, such as AFDB, and multilateral climate funds, such as Green Climate Fund. So Japan's support for climate change, mitigation, and adaptation in Africa has greatly increased.
Do you feel that the support being given to change from the current technologies to greener technologies is adequate for Africa?
I think it's very important, not just for the environment, but also the people's life, or more stable and resilient economy, market. It's really benefit for the economy, environment, society. It's really good for the Africa too.
Excellent. Now, finally, Your Excellency, how are the preparations for the World Expo 2025 going?
I'm really glad that Zimbabwe has already applied for a pavilion at the Expo 2025, Osaka, Kansai.
Sure.
And is currently considering the kind of exhibit they would like to present there. To help with the preparations, the embassy collaborated with Gym Trade, for instance, to hold an Expo 2025 awareness event in June. It was attended by a minister or deputy minister and other really important leaders of the private sector from the Zimbabwean business community.
Sure.
The participants share the lessons learned from the Zimbabwe pavilion at the 2020 Dubai Expo and their insights on how to improve for Expo 2025. Next one, we will continue to assist the government of Zimbabwe with its preparations for Expo 2025.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. This was a wonderful discussion.
Thank you very much.
A lot of insights in terms of what Japan is doing, in terms of supporting and cooperation with Zimbabwe in the various spheres of the economy and other activities as well. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. We've come to the end of our program. I was talking there to His Excellency Ambassador Satoshi Tanaka, the Japanese ambassador to Zimbabwe, and I believe you have benefited from the information that we have shared. Till we meet you next time.